Good morning, Nachum. Good Erev Shabbos, everybody. Tomorrow we have the privilege of reading Parshas Vaera. Whoa! What do we have in Parshas Vaera? We have the first 7 of the 10 makos that HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings upon the Egyptians. From the get-go, let's get it very clear, and we'll see this again a little bit later on. The whole idea as to why. Why does Hashem bring the makos upon the Egyptians? So the first reason is, because Hashem told this exactly to Avram Avinu. If you go back to Bereshis, chapter 15, verse 13, God says to Avraham at the Bris Bein Absorim, Yodoa Teidah, you shall know with absolute certainty this is going to happen. That your offspring, that your descendants are going to be one, strangers in a land which is not theirs, va'avodum, they're going to be enslaved, and finally v'inui osam, they're going to be oppressed physically. Okay? Now, and afterwards, afterwards they will leave with great wealth, which we know every aspect of God's prophecy came true. And then, God continues and says to Abraham, also the nation that does this to the Jewish people, done Anochi, I will judge, and Rashi tells you on the spot, the Eser Makos with 10 plagues. So the first of the 10 plagues, the first 7 appear in Parshas Vaera. But I'd like to focus and show that there is, as we can see from the very beginning of the Parsha, a transition going on. Let's take a look at the opening psukim. Vaydaber Elokim el Moshe, Hashem speaks to Moshe, Vayomer Elav, and he says to him, Ani Hashem, I am God. Wait a second. This seems to be exceedingly repetitive, having 2 names of God, and that is the point that we have to focus on. Vaydaber Elokim. Elokim is the name of God, which denotes Teva, which denotes Din, justice. Hashem put a specific order in the world. There's a sunrise, there's a sunset. There is a natural order to the world which goes with Elokim, which is the Midas Hadin, that of strict justice. Vayomer Elav, and Hashem says to him, whoa, just know, Moshe, that in addition to my being Elokim, Ani Hashem, I am Hashem, God, which denotes the Midas Rachamim, which denotes the Midas of kindness, mercy. Now, what we have here is a transition from Elokim to Ani Hashem. How so? Let's go to the next pasuk. God says, and I'll translate, and I appeared, Vaera, to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. With what name? With the name of Kael Shakai. With the name of God who is, as the Ramban explains, Shakai, She'omar Le'olamo Dai. What does that mean? She'omar Le'olamo Dai. I am the one, says Hashem, who have put boundaries into this world. You look at the ocean, and it flows for 3,000 miles, and then it comes to a stop. And as the waves keep coming in, the water stops at a certain point. It does not continue. Why is that? If, God forbid, it would continue 100 yards or a little bit more, it would, wash away the buildings. People couldn't live there. And the answer is die. She'omar, who said, die, that the waters will stop here, and the waters stop there. Die is, there is boundaries. So I appear to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, says Hashem, with the name of Kel Shakai, where there is din and boundaries in this world. But Ushmi Hashem, my identity as Hashem, which is the God who breaks through boundaries. Lo nodati lehem. This I did not make known to them. This I did not show them. And basically, what is being told to us in these first two psukim is that there is going to be, on behalf of the Jewish people, a breaking of the rules of nature, which are enveloped, encapsulated within Elokim, and the breaking out is going to be with the characteristic of Ani Hashem, which reminds me of the very powerful Beis Halevi, who says on the pasuk in Parshas Vayigash that Hashem said to Yaakov, "Onochi ereid imcha Mitzrayima, I'm going down with you in Egypt. V'onochi ha'alcha, and I will rise up with you, or v'onochi ha'alcha, I will be elevated, gam olo," and on this the Netziv says so powerfully that Hashem gave a haftacha, a promise to Yaakov. Now listen carefully, everybody, because this is the introduction to the Makos. This is the introduction to Parshas Vaera. The Netziv says that Hashem promised Yaakov, I will only break the rules of nature. I will only go beyond the natural law on behalf of saving the Jewish people. And that's, pinch yourself, exactly what's happening in this week's Parsha. In order to, and here we go, the two aspects of the Makos is, on the one hand, punitive for Mitzrayim, punishment for them, as God said to Avram, Gamas Agoy Asher Yavodu Don Onochi. On the one hand, it's punitive, but on the other hand, it's educational for Yisrael. It shows Hashem's love for Klal Yisrael, that He's willing to bring water for Israel and dam for Mitzrayim, that the frogs will disturb only the Egyptians. And so it is with each of the plagues, Hashem showing His love for the Klal Yisrael. With this understanding, I'd like to remind all of us of a passage in the Haggadah Shel Pesach, which at first glance, like, what's going on here? Now watch. After we enumerate the 10 makos that Hashem brought upon the Egyptians, we then go on to say that there were additional makos to these 10. That Rabbi Yossi says there were 10 in Mitzrayim, but Al Hayam there was 50 makos. Now, let's go on. Rabbi Eliezer is taught, how do I know that each makkah that HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought upon the Egyptians had within it 4 makos? It consisted, each one consisted of 4 plagues, and he cites the verse from Tilim 78:49. Take a look. And the question is, how to understand the verse, Yeshalach bam charon apo, Evra, Zam, Tzora, and Mishlachas Malachei Ro'im, which translates as, He sent upon His fierce anger, wrath, fury, trouble, and a team of hostile angels. So according to Rabbi Eliezer, each plague had 4 additional components to it, 4 plagues. And Rabbi Kiva says, I'll top you, and he quotes that same pasuk, Tehillim 78:49, and he begins with understanding the words that Yishalach bam charon apo, meaning that is not as a result of his fierce anger, but he sent fierce anger. So according to Rabbi Akiva, he counts 5 plagues within each plague. Now, what might be the significance and difference of opinion between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva? And the answer might be as found in the commentary of the Haggadah Shel Pesach, entitled Yad Mitzrayim, and there's a Perush Yad Chazaka of Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac Chover, who says very sharply as follows, that Rabbi Eliezer says that each makkah had 4 arba makkos. Each one had 4. Why? Because there are 4 letters to the name of Hashem, Yud-Kei, Vav-Kei, that the makkos were primarily mercy, primarily to save Klal Yisrael, primarily for the benefit of the Jewish people. And therefore, as Hashem's name of mercy is consistent of 4 letters, so too the makkos had 4 makkos within each one. Rabbi Akiva says, no, my friend, it's not the name of Hashem, of Yud-Kei, Vav-Kei, that is paramount in the makkos, but rather it's the name of Elokim, of Din. The God was showing his might and power and breaking through and bringing a polar bear into Egypt. The climate of Egypt does not tolerate the Orov, the wild animals that we had. So according to Chazal, Hashem didn't only bring the polar bear, but he had to bring within Egypt the environment of Antarctica, the environment of the extreme cold, in order that the polar bear should feel comfortable in the environment. He had to bring the forest for the regular bear. Incredible what's going on here. And all this is done for the purpose of punishing Hashem is breaking through the laws of nature for the purpose of Dan Mitzrayim, the purpose of bringing din upon the Egyptians. And as a result, the Bnei Yisrael were saved. So the question is are the 10 makkos a focus on Midas Harachamim or a focus on the Midas Hadin? Now, I don't have to tell you, there's no question about it. When Hashem created the world, what do we find? Bereshis bara Elokim, the very first verse of the Torah, and what pronoun, what name of Hashem is used in that very first verse? The name of Elokim. And Rashi says that Hashem wanted to create this world only with the name of Elokim, but Ra'ah, Hashem saw that the world could not exist with only din. So what does Hashem do? In the beginning of chapter 2, Biyom Asos Hashem Elokim, Hashem brings the midah of Rachamin and Shitfa. He made a Shutfas. Biyom Asos Hashem Elokim. He added to the Midas Hadin, the Midas HaRachamim. And therefore, just as Hashem employs both midos, Shema Yisrael Hashem, which is the midah of Rachamim, Elokeinu, which is the midah of Din, Hashem Echad. Both, when Hashem does both, it is all Hashem Echad. It is all Hashem's kindness, all Hashem's goodness. We don't always see it that way, but that's what we are affirming each and every time that we recite the Shema. The important lesson that emerges from Parshas Vaera is Hashem is the master of combining Midas Hadin and Midas Harachamim. Very quickly, your child gets their license. 2 weeks later, they come and say, Abba, Ima, please, could I have the keys for at night, first time? So they look at each other, the parents, and they say, be home by 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock comes, the child is not home. 10:20, the child comes in. Okay, plan A, parent says, do you know what time it is? Do you know what time I told you to get home? You cannot have the car. There goes. Midas Adin. After all, 10 o'clock is 10 o'clock. Child wasn't home. Plan B, child walks in, the parent gives the child a hug and says, oh, I'm so happy to see you. I'm so glad you're okay. Next time, please call if you're not going to be home on time. Very simple. That's called Midas Horachamim. I can't tell you always which one to use, but I can only tell you that there are 13 Midas Horachamim of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The idea is that we have to basically learn how to integrate the two, how to have both din within our lives. There have to be certain rules, there have to be certain standards, there certainly be certain lines which certainly cannot be crossed, but at the same time we have to have this element of rachamim in the din. That's what it is when we blow the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. Hashem Kavayochol changes from his kisei of din to the kisei of rachamim. We have to be b'halachto b'drachav, and therefore in our personal lives as well, we have to have this combination of chesed and din. Okay? And that is, whether it's in the workplace, that the employer sets rules and expects productivity from his employees. This is din, but he must also show kindness and appreciation to his employees, giving them encouragement and support. This is chesed. And what's true in the area of the workplace is true in friendship. We have to involve chesed and din. We have to be loving, kind, and generous, but sometimes we have to say no to a friend who needs to know some limits. And so it is in marriage as well. If you take a look at the Avos, clearly Avram was chesed and Sarah was din. Yitzchak was din and Rivka was chesed. And you, each one, have to work towards implementing within the marriage. The chesed of marriage requires being gentle, loving towards one's spouse, and interpreting their behavior as stemming from good intentions. But din is also a necessary aspect of marriage. Each spouse has halachic responsibilities, including financial as well as domestic obligations. It's a parsha whereby we see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is providing both chesed and din, and we, as following the 611th mitzvah of Holachto B'Drachav, we too have to do the same. Hatzlacha Rabbah in this most difficult challenge. Shabbat Shalom to all.